Hi everybody, it's Jeannie. I'm here to give you a little demo, a little talk about creating some of the fun little steampunk things that I like to do. If you haven't heard about steampunk, it's a combination of natural and mechanical items, and it's just really fun. Down in the description or somewhere in here, I'll try to post some of my paintings that I've done in this style if you're not familiar with it. So what I wanted to show you first of all is just how I kind of start prepping my drawing and then transferring my drawing onto watercolor paper and then starting to paint. So first of all, I start with a drawing, and I usually like to draw it on tracing paper. And I've started with this little bird. It was a bluebird originally, but who knows what it'll end up being, whether it'll end up being a bluebird or not. I've kind of rounded his chest a little bit more, and then I've started drawing. There's a little watch or clock that he's got hanging on a chain, a little kind of a beanie that he's wearing on his head, some pipe type pieces for his leg, some gears and whatnot. And then I've also put a little vest on him, which is kind of fun, and then created a little flowery gear type shape around his eye. After I've done the first rough drawing, I come back in and I use that drawing as a template and trace over it. And then I start refining the drawing. So if you saw on Instagram, some of you might have seen on Instagram the post of this drawing, and what I've done is I've added some gears. I've added a what do you call that? It's not a clock. It's a can't think of the name of it. Hold on. Anyways, and I've refined my drawing, and so after I've done that, I'll come in and I'll use a transfer paper. This is a graphite transfer paper that I've made myself out of tracing paper and graphite. So what I'll do is I'll turn that over, I'll lay my drawing on top, lay it over my watercolor paper, and I usually use a pen. I like to use, I like to use a ballpoint pen, and then I just draw over and transfer the drawing. And in this case, I've started painting on a little bit, so I'll show you that. In this case, I've moved some of the gears, so I've changed up the drawing a little bit. I also consider the placement, and what I did was I divided my paper into thirds, and then I used that to line up some of my items. So right here, this is a third mark, and the little watch and the beak, and this little circle, I'll kind of line up on that third mark, and that's where the center plot of the third will be where my main subject is, and then this third over here has some additional gears back there in the tail of the bird. Then what I do is I start playing around with color and trying to figure out what I'd like to do as far as color goes. So in this case, what I did was I picked out Permanent Rose from my palette. And I'll just show you my palette here. Permanent Rose here, Winsor Orange here, and Thalo Turquoise over here. And then I've laid out my color on my palette. And then what this is a mixture of the Permanent Rose with the Winsor Orange, then the Winsor Orange with the Thalo Turquoise, and then the Thalo Turquoise with the Permanent Rose. And those are colors that I can get from those three. I like to work in triads. I have certain triads that I use over and over and over again. Here's some neutrals that I mixed from those same three colors, just to kind of play around and see what my results were going to be. And then the first step that I did was just to come in with my first washes, my first light washes, and then I had a note on Instagram. I'm trying to think of who it was from, but you know who you are. And she suggested, are you going to put this up on YouTube? Are you going to do a video of this? And so I thought, well, you know, I've already started, but still it might be fun and you guys might enjoy me working on this a little bit for a YouTube video. And so here we are. And so this is a combination of the Thalo Turquoise and the Winsor Orange in here. This is the Permanent Rose and Thalo Turquoise. This is all three colors used in varying amounts. The beak is the Thalo Turquoise and the Winsor Orange. So you get that kind of a gold-ish color out of that. So with that said, and one other thing I want to share with you, in making these gear shapes, if you're not really proficient with making circles and all of that, you can use tools. So I use anything from a can lid or jar lid, so here's that shape, to these kinds of tools. So like here is my template for this part of the, what are those called? It's not a chart. Oh boy, I hope by the end of the video I can remember what this is. And then also I have this, which has these interesting kind of shapes for a nut, if you were screwing a nut in. So those are kind of nice, and varying sizes of circles. So I try to have as many kinds of templates that I can use to create those. And even as far as, this is a Tim Holtz little metal gear that you can buy a set of. And I've used that for, I think for one of these. Maybe that one. No, I don't know. I guess it's that. Maybe it's that one, but I changed it up a little bit. Anyway, these kinds of things are very, very helpful if you're wanting to add gears to your paintings, which is just super fun, I think, anyway. So, so let's try getting in here, and I'm going to sit down. It's a little easier for me. This is more of a detail process. I like to get a little close up when I'm working in this way. Smallish painting, and just like to get my nose up against my painting, only not really, but you know. So one of the things, when I did the bird's face, I just did, excuse me again, I'm going to get some Kleenex. I just did a wet into wet. So I think what I'll do is I'll start in here, right in here, down under here, right over the vest. I'm just bringing in clear water over the vest. Don't really know, other than picking those three colors, I don't really know exactly what color every part of this is going to be. I just have a general feeling for it. It's hard for me to talk and paint at the same time sometimes. Forgive me. I'm going to make this part right in here kind of a gray metal, sort of like the rest of the bird is so far. So I'm just going to come right up against this area of his leg, right down here, just clear water, and right down over his belly, right in here. So just working small areas, a little bit at a time. Much different than some of my other techniques. While that's soaking in, I'm going to show you, hopefully you can see this. It's hard for me to tell if you can see this or not. But here's my Thalo Turquoise. I'm going to add a fair amount of water. And then my permanent rose. And with these two colors, it can make kind of a violet gray. Anything from a brighter rose on through to a violet back into the turquoise. So that's the way I'm going to start. I'm going to water it down quite a bit. And then also I'm going to take a little bit of my Thalo Turquoise and I'm going to mix some of the Winsor Orange with that. And you can see the variety of color that you can get from those two colors as well. How do you know which colors are going to work for you? For me, it's all experimentation, playing around, seeing how the colors work together, and the results that come from just letting the colors blend together. Okay, so now just going to make sure that's still nice and wet. Is it soaked in a little bit? Let's re-wet some of that. You don't often see me working wet into wet. Some of these little paintings, I really like to work this way. Small areas, wet into wet. Okay, so let's take our permanent rose and our Thalo Turquoise. I'm going to drop some of that in to my wet area, or along the belly. We'll let that kind of float up. I'm going to take an area over here that has a little more of the Thalo Turquoise. That was kind of an even mix of Thalo Turquoise and permanent rose. This has a little more of the Thalo Turquoise in it. See how that color is more towards a gray blue. This is wet, so this is just going to create a little soft edge, the area between those two spaces. But I'm really adding the color into this area down here. This is a hard edge created because this area is wet, this area is dry. The watercolor will not go into that dry area. This is the wing. I'm going to leave that dry for now. Taking a little bit of this mixture over here, and I'm going to add it to that area. So we have a violet, a blue violet, and a green. Just going to let those mingle together. Also, right in here, there's a little gear. I'm just going to push a little color in there. So here's our gear. Here's the vest that the bluebird's wearing. Here's the belly. Let's drop a little more of that in there. Just kind of let those colors mingle. I'm cleaning my brush, I'm going to dry my brush. I'm going to hold my brush up pretty much vertically. Just run my brush right down along the stripes that are going to be the bird's vest. Right there, there, there. I think I'll run that dry brush, clean dry brush, right along the base of the vest. Just like that. I don't know if you can hear that sound. My neighbors are working on their house. And they got something going on out there. As the color kind of mingles and settles, we can manipulate it a little bit more. I'm going to separate this area by using the tip of my brush, dry, clean brush, held vertically. Just let that run right along there. And that is going to be where on his belly, it's going to look like it's a little metal plate, kind of. Just doing a little bit of lifting. With a clean, dry brush, or damp brush, I should say. Same thing back here. Even though this will be more in shadow, I'm still going to do that right now. There. Let's see. Am I happy with that? Just about. And you can, if you like, you could do like a bit of dotting there, so that this looks like metal, this looks like feathers. See how that's lifting just in pushing a little bit of pigment to make it look a little softer and fluffier. This is one of the things I love about this is not just the imagery, it's that idea of textures and surfaces that are different. So we have a fluffy surface and we have a metal surface, and you know, it's just so much fun to play with that. Let's see, let's come along here. I don't want to work right in here yet because this is still wet, so let's just take this area here. And I think some of that same color might be nice. At least we'll try. So I've got that same mix of permanent rose and phthalo turquoise. And I'm coming right up against the edge of that gear. Probably what I'm going to do, and I'm working wet on dry this time, probably what I'm going to do is work on this a little bit and then stop the video, work on it a little bit offline, or I guess you call it offline, and then come back to you and show you where I'm at and then work on it some more. Because one of the reasons is it just takes me so long to work on a painting. It's not practical to show you the whole process, but just to give you ideas and kind of show you how I like to work. Well, hopefully inspire you to try something different for yourself. Got a little bit more of that green. That's the Winsor Orange and the Thalo Turquoise mixed together. I've got a transition moving from dark to light here. It's great to learn how to do transitions. I'm going to bring a little more pigment in here so it's darker there and leave that kind of light down at the base right in here. Then I'm going to negative paint right in here. So I'm leaving, there's a little gear right in here. I'm going to negative paint, and I'm using the green. That's the Thalo Turquoise and the Winsor Orange mixed together. Just going to bring it down, around, and down. I'm working wet on dry and just kind of laying in a flat color. I'm dampening that just a little bit. Now I'm going to kind of lighten up a little bit of that color. Maybe bring a little bit of the violet. That's the Thalo Turquoise and the permanent rose. So Thalo Turquoise, Winsor Orange, making the green. Thalo Turquoise, permanent rose, making the violet and the gray kind of color. Let's come up here and let's just lift up, use clean damp brush. Just gonna lift the, maybe if I can, lift the top edge of this a little bit. And lift a little bit on the bottom edge of each. There's little circles here. So I'm just coming in with my clean damp brush and lifting a little pigment out of those. I hope that you can see that. That gives a little lift, and then I'll come back in and darken those circles later on. And then I've got the green again, same green. I'll just bring in a little bit of water in there, just let that float a little bit more, rather than working wet on dry. It's warm in here, and so the color's drying really fast. So by doing a little bit of wet into wet, it keeps it from drying out too fast. I'll go back in here, lift this out again. Yeah. Nice, I like it. And this is a little bit of that violet, the permanent rose, and the Thalo Turquoise. Drop down in there. It gives it some nice variety. All of this is the base for the painting, and it can be modified to a lesser or larger degree, depending on what I decide to do. And a little bit more dark into these little circles, so you can start to see how those circles are going to recede. I should be using a smaller brush there, make it a little bit nicer. Okay, let's come back in there, kind of even that out a bit. This is a number 4 brush. I was using a number 8 brush, so this gives me a little nicer detail there. And we'll kind of let that sit. I think it might be nice to bring some of that gray violet, now that this is dry, right up against the little vest, right down below this metal plate that I'm imagining is there, or creating, and that'll separate that out even further. Clear water just touched in there, so that what I'm aiming for is a little darker right up in here, but leaving this about the same value there, and popping that out a bit. I can also, I think maybe I'll start bringing in the stripes on the little vest, so you can see that. And I think I'll do it. I'm going to take my Winsor Orange and my Thalo Turquoise, and I'm going to make a gold color. I'm going to use that for one of the part of the stripes in the vest. So let's just take that. We'll pick a stripe. Pick a stripe, any stripe. Let's do this one first, right in here, and I'm just going to lay that color right on top of the color that I've already got there. And I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom, but I'm just going to go about maybe a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch away from that area down there, the little belly of the bird. And then I'm going to skip a space and bring another stripe down. There's a pocket on the vest, so I'm going to leave that light, paint around that stripe, that pocket. So that ends right there. Just keep bringing that color down. like that. If you want to learn more about my techniques and the way I paint, I have a series of videos. If this is the first time you've ever seen a video of mine, welcome to my station. I'm happy you're here, and hope to show you a lot more instructive and fun videos in the future. Here we go. We'll use one more stripe here. Then I'm going to let that dry. So that's just the beginning. I'm going to have polka dots on his little pocket on his vest. I'm going to bring in some buttons going down the vest, but for now I'm just going to leave it. I try not to get ahead of myself. I try to take it piece by piece. You can see I'm glazing over the top, so I'll paint an area and I'll let it dry, and then I'll come back in and add more pigment where I want it to go darker. And I think that's enough, and I'll be back to you with more on this painting very soon. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube station, and that you click the little bell so that you can be notified when I do upload another video. I don't have a regular schedule right now. Sometimes there's a lot of videos that I'm uploading and sometimes not so much. I'm going to try to work my way into having a regular schedule for you. But right now it's not possible for me, and so I hope you'll enjoy when I actually do get videos up. And forgive me that they're not regular. Thanks again for watching. Enjoy your watercolor painting, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, everyone.